Hi guys, in this video we're going to go over the classification and some life history characteristics for the different families of fish. So by the end of this video you should be able to differentiate the orders and families described, give examples of species from each of the families, and describe general life history characteristics of the 7 families. So all of the fish that we're focusing on are in the class Actinopterygii. It used to be called the class Osteichthyes. These are the bony fish, the ray fin fish. There's 4 orders that we're going to look at in this class. There's more than 4 orders total, but we're going to focus on these. And then within those 4 orders, we're going to look at 7 different families. So we'll go through those 7 families. First up is the Cyprinidae, the minnows, shiners, and carps. The word part cyprium in Latin means copper or shiny, and a lot of the species in this family do kind of have a shiny appearance and a coppery color. This is the largest family of fishes with 2,100 species worldwide, and in the US and Canada there's 231 species. There's lots of variation among species in their morphology, their diet, even just the basic ecology. These characteristics that are listed here are in your lab handout, so we've talked a little bit about those in lab. Then down here are pictures, examples of each of the species that you're responsible for in this family. So the first one is the common carp. That's right here. Cyprinus carpio. That has the little barbels next to the mouth. This one here is the golden shiner, nice and golden colored. Scientific name Notomogonus chrysolucus. This here is a yellowfin shiner. You see the yellow color on the tips of the fins. Scientific name Notropus ludipinus. And this here is the bluehead chub Nocomis leptocephalus. This is the one that in lab we saw a breeding male that was kind of bluish in color, and on the forehead had those tubercles that kind of pop out during breeding season. Next family is Catastomidae. These are the suckers. You see in the name the stoma, and that in Latin means mouth or opening. You might be familiar with that from plants, the openings on the underside of leaves, or the stomata. And that refers to these mouth parts being very distinctive on suckers. They have like lips that point downward, and you've looked at those in lab. In the US and Canada, there's 63 species of suckers. They're really pretty big in size in general and pretty high in abundance, and so in most streams and lakes that they're in, they account for a good proportion of the total biomass. Again, we have the list of the characteristics that you're familiar with from lab, and then pictures of the species that you're responsible for. So first up there is the northern hog sucker, Hypentelium nigricans, and then Moxostoma Rupus cartes, that's the striped jump rock, that's this one. The next family is Ictaluridae. These are the North American freshwater catfish. In Latin, luridus means kind of sallow, which in general means just kind of pale, or it also means yellow to pale brown. So remember, the catfish don't have scales, and so they're just kind of that slimy, like matte color. They're not shiny and iridescent like some other fishes with scales, and so that's where that name comes from. In the US and Canada, there's about 40 species. They're active mainly at night, which sets them apart from many other fish. The 4 barbels near their mouth, that's very distinctively catfish. And then the other characteristics we've talked about in lab. So these are the 3 species that you're familiar with. You should be familiar with. This is the channel catfish, Ictalurus punctatus. These 2 pictures are both the flathead catfish, Pylodictis olivaris, and the skin color here is kind of an olivey color, helps you remember. And I put this second picture here so you can see the flatness of the head and the kind of width of the mouth of that flathead. And then this is a snail bullhead, Ameiurus brennius. Sorry about that. We were here. So the rest of these characteristics we've talked about in lab, so that's kind of a review for you. And then the 3 species that you're responsible for here, the eastern brook trout, Remember the kind of dark background with the light spots? That's Salvelinus frontinalis. Here's the brown trout, where it's a light background with the dark spots and the nice golden underbelly. Trutta. And this is a rainbow trout, which is good to look at pictures of live or recently living fish where you can really see the colors, the nice color of those that we don't see so much in the preserved specimens of lab. So the scientific name there is Oncorhynchus micus. Centrarchidae is the family of sunfishes and black basses. In Latin, centrarch means ridge. These guys have this really pronounced dorsal fin that's really pretty spiky, and that's where that name comes from that ridge. There's about 30 species of these in freshwater of North America. There are popular sport fishes, and something that sets them apart from other fish is that the males build nests and guard their young. Other characteristics you should have seen in lab. And then there's a whole bunch of species of these that we're going to be familiar with. So let's go through those real quick. The first couple you might already be familiar with, the largemouth and smallmouth basses. So the largemouth here, Micropterus salmoides, and the smallmouth here, Micropterus dolomieu. You see that the largemouth, the hinge of the mouth is kind of even with the eye, or it might be a little behind the eye, whereas in the smallmouth, the hinge of the mouth is before the eye, if you kind of draw a line straight up. This here is the red-eye bass, scientific name Micropterus cusae. This is the warmouth, Lipomus gullosus. Then we get to the sunfish, and most of these, they have this kind of, it's sometimes called an ear flap. It's an extension of the gill cover of the operculum, and that kind of tells you that it's a sunfish, but then the differences in them can help you tell apart the species. So this is a green sunfish, Lipomus cyanellus. The bluegill here is Lipomus macrochirus. This is the red ear sunfish, which you see that ear flap has a little bit of red on it, Lipomus microlophus. The red breast sunfish has that nice red under here, Lipomus auritus. Long ear sunfish has a particularly long ear flap there, or a little extension of the operculum, and that's Lipomus megalotus. And then finally the black crappie is Pomoxis nigromaculatus. Next family, I think this is my favorite family name, Moranidae, the temperate basses. So the word moron, or word part moron, literally means dull, whether it's dull-witted or dull in color. And it's just, these guys don't have a lot of color, right? They're just kind of a dull, whitish gray color. These are also popular sport fish. Again, these characteristics you've seen in lab. And the two species that we're focusing on are the white bass and the striped bass. So here's the white bass, Morone chrysiops, and Morone saxatilis is the striped bass. Next family, Percidae. These are the perches, walleyes, and darters. And Percidae literally means the perch family. In the U.S. and Canada, there's 153 species, so this family is second only to Cyprinidae in the most number of species. Most of the species in this family are darters. And so all of the darters are very, very small. So most of the members of this family are very, very small, except for the walleye, yellow perch, and sauger. Those are the three non-darter members of this family. These are the characteristics we talked about in lab. And here are the three species. First is Persa flavescens. That's the yellow perch. That's the one on the top left there. And then we have So this is yellow perch. Then we have the black-banded darter, which you see kind of the black bands there. That's Persina nigrofasciata. And this is the beautiful turquoise darter. You see some of that turquoise color and the nice yellow color also. This is Ethiostoma inscriptum. So again, go back and make sure you have some good notes that allow you to differentiate the orders and the families, be able to give examples of species from each of the families, and describe the general life history characteristics. In lab, we had some time to talk about the really specific characteristics of each of the species, so you should also be familiar with that. So we're going to leave you this time with a comic, A Far Side, and I want to make sure that everybody knows what ichthyology is. Ichthyology is the study of fish. So if you weren't familiar with that, we probably should have talked about it earlier in our fish discussions, but I thought that this far side, if we weren't aware, is a good way to make us aware of what ichthyology is, and the ichthyologists are folks that study fish. So study your fish, be good ichthyologists. I'll see you in class.